The rich history of the Philippines began with the arrival of its first human inhabitants. It is believed that around 60,000 years ago, early humans reached the archipelago using rafts or boats, leading to the settlement of diverse groups across the islands. Over the millennia, some of these groups evolved into larger communities, eventually forming early states as suggested by some scholars. Starting around 4000 BC, Austronesians and later Malayo-Polynesian speakers arrived in successive waves, contributing to the region's cultural and social development. Evidence indicates that a jade culture emerged during the Neolithic era. By 1000 BC, the inhabitants had organized into 4 distinct groups: tribal societies, warrior clans, the Petsa plutocracy, and harbor civilizations. These groups reflected the complexity and diversity of early Philippine society. Significantly, metallurgy reached the archipelago through trade with India. Between 300 and 700 AD, the seafaring peoples of the Philippines engaged in trade with Indianized kingdoms in the Malay archipelago and nearby East Asian principalities. This contact brought influences from both Buddhism and Hinduism, shaping the cultural landscape of the islands. The history of the Philippines is a tapestry of diverse cultures and influences, woven together through centuries of migration, trade, and cultural exchange. This legacy has created a vibrant and dynamic society that continues to evolve today. In present-day Vietnam, there are cultures that have shown evidence of extensive trade networks. Artifacts such as glass, agate, and gold were exchanged widely. Ear ornaments found at archaeological sites in the Philippines, Thailand, and Taiwan suggest these items were likely imported, indicating robust regional trade. Indian culture began influencing Southeast Asia as early as the 1st century. During the era of the South Indian Pallava dynasty and the North Indian Gupta Empire, Indian cultural elements spread throughout Southeast Asia, including the Philippines. This led to the establishment of new kingdoms, deeply influenced by Indian traditions and practices. The oldest known document from the Philippines is the Laguna copperplate inscription, dated to 900 AD. Written in the Kawi script, this document reveals that Namoran and his children were absolved of a debt by the ruler of Tondo. This inscription is significant as it demonstrates the use of mathematics in pre-colonial Philippine societies. Additionally, it shows a standardized system of weights and measures for gold and other items, highlighting advanced trade and astronomy practices. This rich tapestry of trade, cultural exchange, and early documentation underscores the historical complexity and sophistication of Southeast Asian societies long before colonial influences arrived. The historical document reveals that the culture and society around Manila Bay were a blend of Hindu and Old Malay influences, much like the cultures of Java, the Malay Peninsula, India, and Sumatra during that time. Before the year 1000, the Philippines was home to several maritime societies, but there wasn't a single political entity that unified the entire archipelago. Instead, the region was composed of numerous semi-autonomous city-states governed by local elites. These city-states were often influenced by or alternated between being part of larger Asian empires like Majapahit. By around 1225, the Buddhist nation of Mai, a pre-Hispanic Philippine island state centered in Mindoro, was flourishing. It became a significant hub for traders from the Kingdom of Ryukyu to the Empire of Japan. Chao Jukwa, a customs inspector from China's Fujian province, documented the trade practices of these people, noting their honesty in commerce. During the 1300s, much of what is now Indonesia was under the rule of the Hindu Majapahit Empire, which extended its influence over Luzon and the Sulu archipelago. This period saw a mix of cultural influence and military skirmishes as these areas interacted with the expanding empire. The historical tapestry of Manila Bay society, with its blend of cultural influences and strategic maritime trade, paints a vivid picture of a dynamic and interconnected region long before colonial times. Some local tribes waged relentless guerrilla warfare against their occupiers. Eventually, the kingdoms of Luzon regained their independence from Majapahit after the Battle of Manila in 1365. Sulu also re-established its independence and, in retaliation, attacked the Majapahit province of Brunei before a fleet from the capital drove them out. The rise of Islam in Indonesia marked the beginning of the end for Majapahit, as its provinces gradually seceded and formed independent sultanates. In 1380, an Arab trader named Makdum Karim arrived in Sulu from Malacca and introduced Islam to the Philippines. Sharif-ul-Hashim, another Arab Muslim explorer, established the Sultanate of Sulu by converting the local Hindu ruler, Raja Bagwinda, to Islam and marrying his daughter. By the end of the 15th century, the Sultanate of Maguindanao also rose to prominence. Islam spread through the region thanks to the efforts of Muslim missionaries and traders from the Middle East, India, and Malaysia who brought the religion to Sulu and Maguindanao. This period was a transformative era for the Philippines, with the spread of Islam reshaping the cultural and political landscape, leading to the rise of new sultanates and the decline of older kingdoms. Just as Buddhist and Hindu cultures had previously influenced the archipelago, Muslim culture also made its mark. When Brunei seceded from the Majapahit Empire, they welcomed an Arab emir from Mecca, Sharif Ali, establishing themselves as an independent sultanate. Over the following decades, Islam spread through the Philippines via conquest and the conversion of local leaders. The arrival of traders and missionaries from Malaysia and Indonesia further strengthened the new religion's foothold. In 1521, the Spanish arrived in the archipelago through an expedition led by the Portuguese-born Spanish explorer Ferdinand Magellan. Claiming the islands for the Spanish Empire, Magellan established friendly relations with some local leaders and converted a few to Roman Catholicism. Given the vastness of the Philippine archipelago, the Spaniards began exploring numerous islands. However, Ferdinand Magellan's journey ended abruptly when he was killed in the Battle of Mactan by the local ruler Lapu-Lapu. This era marked a significant cultural shift in the Philippines, as the spread of Islam and the arrival of Spanish explorers brought new religious, cultural, and political influences that would shape the region's history. Over the next few decades, Spain sent more expeditions to the Philippine Islands. In 1543, one such expedition named the islands Philippines in honor of Philip of Austria, who became Philip II of Spain on January 16, 1556. This name was eventually applied to the entire archipelago during the Spanish era. European colonization took off when Spanish explorer Miguel López de Legazpi arrived from Mexico in 1565 and established the first European settlements in Cebu. Through a combination of diplomacy and military force, the Spanish incorporated local states, including the Kingdom of Tondo, and declared Manila the capital of the Spanish East Indies. In 1578, the Castilian War broke out between the Christian Spaniards and Muslim Bruneians over control of the Philippines. The Spanish forces were incredibly diverse, consisting of people from various regions under Spanish rule, including Native Americans like the Aztecs, Mayans, and Incans, who were brought from Mexico and South America. These troops, led by Spanish officers, collaborated with native Filipinos in military campaigns across Southeast Asia. This period marked the beginning of significant Spanish influence in the Philippines, leading to centuries of cultural, religious, and political changes that would shape the nation's history. The Muslim side was also very diverse, though. They were supported by the Ottoman Empire, with their troops consisting of Malay warriors and expeditionary forces sent by the Ottomans, which included mainly Turks, Egyptians, Swahilis, Somalis, Indians, and others. The conflict concluded with a return to the pre-war conditions. Just 20 years after the conquest of Luzon, significant progress had been made in colonizing the islands and spreading Christianity. A grand cathedral and an episcopal palace were constructed in Manila, along with numerous monasteries and churches across the islands, leading to an increasing number of people converting to Christianity. Spanish and Mexican families began settling in the new territories, strengthening the communities. Much of the archipelago came under Spanish control, forming the first unified political entity known as the Philippines. Spanish colonial rule introduced Christianity, a formal legal code, and the oldest modern university in Asia. The Philippines was initially governed by the Mexico-based Viceroyalty of New Spain before being directly administered by Spain. Over the centuries, various local revolts arose due to abuses by Spanish authorities. Spanish rule ultimately ended after the Spanish-American War in 1898, when the Philippines became a territory of the United States. The US then established the insular government to oversee the Philippines. This period marked the Philippines' transformation under Spanish influence, leading to significant cultural, religious, and political changes that shaped its modern identity. In 1907, the elected assembly was set up with popular elections. The US promised independence in the Jones Act to the country, and the Philippine Commonwealth was established in 1935 as a 10-year interim step period to full independence. But before gaining total freedom, in 1942, during World War II, the Philippines was occupied by Japanese forces. By 1945, the US liberated the Philippines, and the Treaty of Manila in 1946 established an independent Philippine Republic. The period of their independence was marked by internal skirmishes and a smaller period of dictatorship, but also huge progress and development, with Manuel Roxas becoming the first president of the Independent Republic of the Philippines. The United States granted the Philippines its independence on July 4, 1946. However, the Philippine economy remained closely tied to US markets. President Manuel Roxas passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack in April 1948, and Vice President Elpidio Quirino took over, leading the country until 1953. During the 1950s, communist insurgents were active in the Philippines, but were eventually defeated. A significant shift occurred in the mid-1960s when Ferdinand Marcos came to power in 1965, ruling until 1986. His tenure included the final years of the Third Republic, 1965 to 1972, and a period of martial law, 1972 to 1981. Marcos's rule was characterized by dictatorship and widespread instability. In 1986, Ferdinand Marcos was ousted from power, and Maria Corazon Aquino became the new leader. Since then, the Philippines has seen 5 other presidents, each contributing to the nation's ongoing journey towards stability and progress. This era in Philippine history was marked by dramatic political changes and challenges, shaping the country's path towards democracy and independence.